Hey, I am Jess, and I'm obsessed with all things nutrition, science, and helping you navigate this information while maintaining a deep sense of peace and empowerment in your body. I'm a registered dietitian who started out with an eating disorder and then fell in love with learning about how God intricately designed our bodies to be resilient and so much more than superficially beautiful. I am now a mama who loves to be healthy, not because of how it makes me look, but because of how it has transformed the energy I can give to my family, my friends, and you. On this show, we hit on real talk around the latest nutrition science and body image resiliency, all while balancing it between grit and grace. Think of this as your weekly audio coffee to encourage your empowered eating journey. This is the Fuel Her Awesome podcast. Hey friend, welcome back to the summer series. Here on Fuel Her Awesome this week, we are going through a mini series to kick off the summer. I just think summer is a time of chaos and adventure and busy schedules, but fun schedules, and then swimsuits. There's just a lot that's thrown at us. So I thought it'd be cool to kick it off with some empowered eating skills. If you didn't tune in on Monday, we talked about listening to your body through biofeedback, how we can shift from a posture of criticism to a posture of curiosity where we can learn what our body is trying to say to us and then respond in a way that builds partnership and trust with our body. So if you didn't tune in, go back and listen to that episode. And if you haven't already, I have a new free workshop for you. It is Biofeedback Boss, where we actually dive into some of the first steps you can take to really start listening to your body and build that partnership so that you can live empowered in your body. Because I have this whole thing that you may not like everything about your body. I don't think any woman, I just don't think that's normal to look at your body and go, I love every inch of it. And maybe you do. I don't know if you do. Cool. I'm not there. But what I do think is that regardless of how we feel about our body, we can learn to love and respect it and start to build a relationship with our body that puts us in an empowered position so that we can live out life at a higher capacity. I mean, this is the heart of the Fuel Her Awesome show, where we really like to unpack science and look at how nutrition and exercise can be supportive in our lifestyle, but then also looking at that through this higher perspective lens of how healthy we want to be, why we want to be healthy, and what that actually gives, not just to us, but to the people around us. So yeah, that's what we're doing here. And we're going to do it through biofeedback. We talked about that on Monday. Today, we're talking about mental health mojo and how we can start to create daily habits for not just mental wellness, but mental strength. And I am kind of on a soapbox about this lately. I think taking care of our mental health is something that we reserve for people that are depressed or anxious or overwhelmed or burned out. And I really think it's just something we all need to be doing. I think we need to think of mental health less like something that only pops up when there's a problem and more like something that we take care of, we stretch, we exercise every day like we do our physical health. If I were to imagine mental health as a garden, if I only watered those plants when they were wilting, that garden would never thrive, ever, right? Which is what I actually do with my plants. I'm terrible. It's not until they're wilting that I go, oh, I should water them. What if we switched that? What if we decided to tend to our mental health regularly, giving it consistent care and attention? It will flourish. And you can see that with plants. You see that with your physical health. It's no different when it comes to your mental health. By nurturing our mental well-being, we can create these resilient, vibrant, and balanced inner landscapes that really set us up to succeed no matter what life brings to us. And I think we're living in a culture right now that likes to invite us into the victim seat. And I'm not here for that because things are going to happen. Life is real. However, we have the power to strengthen ourselves from within. In fact, that's the only power that we have. And so that's what we're going to do here today. We are going to build so that we don't just have average mental health strength. I want you to have this strength and resiliency that really surpasses what we're told we're capable of. I think there's so much about being anxious and depressed, which the awareness is really, really important. And at the same time, we can be really powerful with our mind. And we're going to work on that today through the lens of empowered eating. You ready for it? So let's just kind of look at some of the landscape that we're in to start. So I've worked in mental health actually my entire dietetic career. So I've developed some thoughts and opinions based on what I've seen and what I've read in the literature. And there are some things that bummed me out. So I pulled some data from the National Institute of Mental Health, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, and the World Health Organization. And the stats are not good. 1 in 4 American women are prescribed medication for mental health disorders. 1 in 4 women. That means anytime we go out on a girls' night, we're looking at a chunk of us that are probably being treated for a mental health disorder via medication. And I don't share that because I think there's anything wrong with being on medication, but to recognize how many of us are struggling with anxiety and depression. There has been a significant increase in the prevalence of depression among adolescents and women in particular in the last decade. And we saw a huge spike during COVID. We saw up to about a 25% spike in anxiety and depression. What really gets me is that women are nearly twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And we could go into lots of reasons why that might be, what we're juggling, the different pressures that are on women. But bottom line, I don't like that. And I think that's more of a reason for us women to learn on how to mentally train our minds to be stronger. I think it's important for our own well-being and how we move through the world. But I think even more importantly, this matters because we are setting the stage for the next generation. And the next generation has record-breaking stats when it comes to depression and anxiety. And so I know fixing that problem actually starts with us and learning how to become not just emotionally aware, but emotionally strong so that we can teach that to our kids and the next generation. I'm so here for it. You here for it? Okay, there are a couple of things, a couple of bones I want to pick with the mental health system. And this is something that has really been put on my heart lately and something I'm working on fighting, quite honestly. I'm working on some things behind the scenes, which I'll be sharing in the months to come, but they're baby seeds right now. But I think there are some things, there's 2 messages within the mental health system that I think are devastating to anyone that has either struggled with mental health or knows someone that struggles with it. Number 1, there is this message that you have to be clinically depressed, have an anxiety attack, or experience extreme burnout in order to seek help. And I think this is so damaging. Our culture has this kind of hint or this undertone that you cannot claim burnout or depression until you hit rock bottom. And I know this because the last 15 years, I don't see women who are just struggling a little bit come in and get help. I see the ones that hit rock bottom. The ones who are like, I'm not sleeping at all at night. My husband and I aren't doing well. He's asking for a divorce. I feel disconnected from my kids. I don't even know who I am anymore. I can't write an email. Like, we get to that rock bottom space and then seek help. You cannot quit your job until you become so disconnected from things that like you don't know who you are, or you feel like you can't seek help for postpartum depression until you have a debilitating breakdown. I mean, I could go on and get on a soapbox about this because why would we wait until something awful happens? Why can't we see the red flags and work to strengthen from wherever we're at to become incredibly resilient? It would be like letting yourself go into so much debt that you ignore it and ignore it. Like you ignore the collection calls, you ignore the bills, and you don't do anything. You don't address any of your debt until the cops are knocking on your door, getting ready to repo your house and kicking you out. That's how I see mental health. It's like we don't respond to some of these red flags. So, sister, here we are. I want you to know we are not waiting for rock bottom. We're going to read any signs that you have right now and start caring for yourself today. You do not have to earn the right to seek support for your mental health. This is just something that needs to be a part of our daily rhythm. So I don't know what kind of season you're in right now. I mean, you might be in a really great season. You might be in a season of stretch. You might be in a really tough season. But bottom line, I know we are all juggling a a lot at one time. Careers, dreams, health, motherhood, relationships, failed expectations. I mean, you get into your 30s and 40s and you kind of like had these thoughts of where you would be and you might not be there. And so I think that's the whole thing we're trying to navigate. We are all going through something. And instead of waiting for this stress to crush you, I want you to think like, what are you doing right now to build your own strength? You are not someone who has a spirit of victimhood or fear or timidity. You are actually someone that I believe was made to be strong and really powerful. And this kind of gets into some of my faith roots because I do believe that God made each of us with this ability to have a spirit of power. And so we're going to take on the stress before it overtakes us. Cool? Okay, now I have to say this whole message of like, you have to be so depressed or have an anxiety attack or experience extreme burnout before achieving like the ability to reach out and ask for help. I struggled with this. I mean, I was in really bad burnout over the last year and really struggled to make a change because I thought, well, it's not bad enough, right? Like I still have a lot to be grateful for. And I did. And I can be grateful for what I have, but still read some of the signs like not sleeping through the night, feeling tired, having a really hard time answering emails, my hormones being off. Like I don't have to wait for those to crush me to make a change. And it actually took someone speaking directly into my life for me to give myself this permission. So I'm sharing this with you because if you're like me and you're like, Jess, I do struggle with some mental health things and I know some stuff is off, but I don't really know if it's worth a change. It's worth a change, sister. What someone spoke into me at the beginning of the year, I hired a coach and he spoke into me. He said, Jess, we were not called to live a life of mediocrity. We were not called to live a life of struggle. We are called to live a life that serves our family, friends, and the mission God has laid out before you. And that really hit me. And so if you're feeling like you're stretched really, really thin, I just want to give you the permission right now to not wait till it gets worse. Like, what can you do right now? And, maybe not, quitting your job is a little bit of extreme change. I get that. But maybe it's something that looks like just shifting up your lifestyle. Maybe you switch up your schedule. Maybe we prioritize you time in the morning so that you can sit down, set your intentions of the day, have some prayer and quiet time if that's something that's important to you. Work out, move your body, and then start tackling all the to-dos. If we can just shift a little bit in response to some of those red flags, I think we'll prevent the extreme burnout, the clinically depressed rock bottom state that so many people wait to happen. So prevention and mental strength training can go a really, really long way. Okay, that's one of my bones I have to pick with the mental health world is that you do not have to be in an extremely compromised mental health state to seek help. Like we can do things now. The second bone that I have to pick is that I think there is another underlying message in the mental health world, in the medical world, that we are broken and we need chemicals to rebalance. Now, before I go into this, I do want to say I am in no way opposed to medication for mental health. I actually believe there is a very strong time and place for medication. So that's not to say, that is not what I'm saying here. If you are on medication for mental health, that is not what I'm not trying to talk you out of it. But what I am opposed to is this idea that is what's required to fix you and that will be the cure and that you need them forever. And here's why I'm against that. Because when we have this message that we are broken and need chemicals to rebalance, we are living under this lie that health is not under our control, that optimal health is something that doesn't require our participation in it. My friend, again, medication, time and place. Like if you're going through cancer treatment, praise God for modern medicine because we have extended lives beyond what would have been even 20, 30 years ago. Time and place for medication. But when it comes to mental health, I think we need to recognize the role we play in our mental health strength training. And just to empower you, I want to share a little bit about the chemical imbalance theory behind antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. And I just want you to hear this because I think we aren't told the whole picture. At least I wasn't, like in my initial introductions into the mental health world. So I just want to throw it out there, see what you think. So the chemical imbalance theory is actually a theory. It's not a proven fact. So it originated in about the 1960s, and it was based on observations that drugs altering neurotransmitter levels could affect mood. So they invented medications like SSRIs, which stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So medications like these increase serotonin levels in the brain. Serotonin is our happy hormone. So we were seeing that these were developed and they became popular treatments for depression and seemingly supported this chemical imbalance theory. But here's where there's actually a lack of direct evidence. So despite extensive research, there are no consistent biomarkers for serotonin levels that can reliably diagnose depression. So in other words, we can't measure that and say that there's a cutoff that you're depressed or you're not depressed based on your serotonin levels. Studies have not consistently shown lower serotonin levels in people with depression. Now, again, that's not to say that they can't help. Working in mental health for years, I often had patients that would go on SSRIs for a period of time to help them as they moved through a really tough season, and it helped them develop some of their skills. So again, like time and place for some of these SSRIs. And at the same time, I think the underlying message that your brain is broken is a lie, because science has not proven that there is a dramatic or consistent difference in serotonin levels in people who are depressed or not depressed. Some of the other things I've noticed is that the effectiveness of antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, it varies. So antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, we know they do not work for everyone. The efficacy varies depending on who the person is. And here's the argument I have, what other lifestyle interventions are they adding to their treatment plan? I think what we have to remember when it comes to medication is that depression and anxiety are complex conditions. They're influenced by genetic, environmental, and psychosocial factors. So things like chronic stress, trauma, adverse life events, and other significant contributors make up some of the struggles that we have. And so, I share this because I think when we go into treating mental health and we think that medication is the only and primary answer, we're operating under this assumption that we are broken, and we are not broken. You have a spirit of power and strength, and while medication may play a role in your journey, it is not the role. And there's actually a lot of chatter and discussion and research brewing in the mental health world on the power of nutrition for mental health. So while chemical imbalance theory has provided a useful framework for understanding depression and anxiety, it's helped us develop treatments, I think it's now using medication alone is now considered overly simplistic because we know how multifaceted depression and anxiety is. Current research suggests that we need to focus on a broader range of biological, psychological, and social factors in treating these things, and not just treating them, but preventing them. Internutritional psychiatry. This is becoming more and more popular as we know that 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut. And guess what your gut is related to? Your nutrition. So if you have an inflamed gut, you are likely to have serotonin shortages. My plan here is to leave the medication prescribing to trusted psychiatrists while I continue to work with people like you on what you can do with your lifestyle to medicinally set yourself up for mental strength and resiliency. Are you here for it? I am so into this. It's crazy awesome. So here are some things you need to know. You need to know what your vitamin D levels are. Are you vitamin D deficient? This is going to directly impact your immune system, your gut health, and most importantly, your mental health. So we need to know what that is. Next time you see your physician, request a vitamin D test. What is your hemoglobin level? What's your hemoglobin A1C? This tells us what your average blood sugar over 3 months is. Now, I know continuous glucose monitors are like the hot thing right now, and I don't know. I should do a whole episode on this. I have some mixed feelings because I think on the one hand, it can give really cool information in the moment in regards to how our body responds to various carbohydrates. And at the same time, if you are like me and you are a person that tends to get caught up in the moment and has a hard time keeping the bigger picture at the forefront of our mind, we can freak out when we see those numbers go really high or really low. And so I think the intent behind continuous glucose monitors is cool, but I like our hemoglobin A1C better because it gives us a trend over time. And I am much more interested in trends than single data points. And so A1C, your hemoglobin A1C, is going to tell you what your blood sugar trends are. If we have really high blood sugars or really low blood sugars, that's going to directly impact our brain's ability to have access to glucose, which is required for generating new thoughts. So in other words, if your blood sugar is really low and something happens to you and you're trying to like have mental strength or think of a better, more productive, positive thought, you're not going to be able to do it because you don't have glucose. You need glucose to support neuroplasticity. Another item you need to know when building mental strength is what are your inflammation levels? And these can be measured through a high sensitivity CRP or C-reactive protein test. So again, you can talk to your doctor about getting this tested and seeing what your level of inflammation is within your body. We also need to know, is your thyroid in balance? What's going on with your metabolism? And then the last bit that I like to look at is your B12 levels. Are you B12 deficient? B12 is directly related to our brain health. It promotes fluid intelligence. So like not allowing our brain to be so rigid or preventing it from being so rigid. And if we don't have enough B12, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to be rigid thinkers. So see, these are some of the biomarkers I like to look at. And this is really more of a one-on-one conversation where I work with individuals in a one-on-one setting and we dive in deeper to look at their nutritional status based on the answers to these questions. So that's your homework. Take those questions. Let's look into those. And if you missed them, I do have them outlined for you in the show notes. But for the purposes of this podcast, let's talk a little bit more on like the general nutrition next steps for mental strength training. So when I think of building mental health resiliency, I think of two operating systems in our body, our brain and our gut. And our brain and our gut are directly connected. So I think of kind of our brain like the federal government, and our gut is like the local government system. So they work in tandem together. However, they also operate independently. So your gut health, it really matters when it comes to what's happening in your brain. And I actually dive into this in a lot more detail inside my biofeedback seminar. So check out the free workshop. And then if you want to dive in even deeper, I have a 90-minute biofeedback seminar where we talk more about gut health and that gut-brain connection. All of those links can be found down in the show notes. So feel free to dive in deeper there. But for today, let's focus on some of the micronutrients and the nutrition target points so that we can build stronger brains. Our brain is an incredibly metabolically active organ. So I love telling this to teenagers because they think if you're just like laying in bed, studying or reading or watching Netflix that you like burn no calories. And I love telling them this. You have something called your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate is the very basic amount of energy or calories your body needs to function metabolically. That means like lungs to breathe, blood to pump through your body, heart to beat, eyes to blink, all that stuff that we don't think about. That is your basal metabolic rate. And then you have something called your resting metabolic rate. And this is at least 10% higher. This would be if you were to lay in bed all day long and read or think, or that step up from basic like metabolic functioning to actually adding the brain power behind what our brain is doing. That's a whole 10% or more bump in energy expenditure just based on your brain functioning. So imagine if we gave our brain awesome tools to do more with that. Our brains are incredibly metabolically active. Yes, even though our brains are not physically running, they are mentally running, and that requires calories, specifically glucose. When nutrition becomes imbalanced, it can actually lead to changes in our brain metabolism. This is going to impact our mood, our thinking, our memory. So let's talk about some nutrients to build that brain stamina. Number one is having enough glucose. Your brain lives on glucose. it needs carbohydrates to actually go into your body, be processed in your gut, go into your bloodstream as glucose to transition into your brain for brain power. Glucose is literally the mental juice power that your brain needs. So if we're operating on a low blood sugar, it's going to be really hard to think at the higher level that we would like to think at. Another key component for brain health is essential fatty acids. So these are like your omega-3 fatty acids. We need about 1 to 2 grams per day of essential fatty acids. And I think of this like lotion for your brain. It helps the flow of neurochemicals in your brain flow faster and smoother. And a lot of us don't get this. So this would be a great one to consider supplementing if that's of interest to you. You can always shoot me a message. And then we also need high quality proteins, specifically amino acids like tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine play key roles in developing neurotransmitters within our brain. So I'm kind of laughing right now because I literally just told you the first 3 things that you need are carbs, fats, and protein, which is the balanced diet. I'm using a bunch of fancy words here like essential fatty acids, complex carbs, high quality protein, which is all really true. But at the basic level, it's truly just making sure we're getting enough of each of these macronutrients. And so many of the extreme diets these days cut out carbs or overemphasize fat that we don't give our body the balance it really needs. Okay, that's my case for eating balanced. Let's talk about some of the micronutrients, and I'm going to breeze through these real quickly because I want to make sure to give you some food recommendations. Okay, we need vitamin A in particular. Vitamin A is associated with memory and thinking skills, and we can get vitamin A from leafy green vegetables, orange and yellow vegetables, tomato products, and fruits. Then we need a whole slew of B vitamins. We need B1. Deficiency of B1 is linked to anxiety. B2 helps to alleviate emotional distress. B3 deficiency is also associated with anxiety and depression. And then B12, which I mentioned checking your status a bit earlier in the show, B12 actually promotes that fluid intelligence within our brain, so it prevents rigid thinking. Now, to get all of these B vitamins, we can look at eating whole grains, eggs and dairy, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, and animal-based proteins. Vitamin C allows our cells to talk to one another within inside of our brain. So vitamin C is going to come from a lot of those brightly colored fruits and vegetables. Choline, one of the coolest micronutrients, this is actually found predominantly in egg yolks, which is why when I talk about folks eating eggs, as long as they don't have a reaction to saturated fats, I'm like, eat at least 1 egg yolk. So let's not skip all of the egg yolks and go for egg whites. Like, we need some of that yolk. Choline from the egg yolks makes acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that plays a role in memory, learning, attention, and involuntary muscle movement. So all of that, like eye blinking, all of those little things that our brain is in charge of, choline supports. Vitamin D has many roles in our body, but one in particular that relates to the brain is that it actually helps make neurotransmitters, like all of the things that connect our hormones and our thoughts within our brain. We need adequate vitamin D. Vitamin E, it actually protects something called the fatty sheath around neurotransmitters. And then inositol, this actually increases serotonin in our brain. Now, this is a whole list, and if you're like, oh wait, Jess, what foods do I need? Instead of overcomplicating it, let me just give you a list of foods to add to your grocery list. So put these on your grocery list and incorporate them. I wouldn't get obsessed about having them every day. Here's where we flex our empowered eating skills. Let's not get obsessed about adding these every day, but let's invite these in as a part of our regular eating rhythm. Fatty fish like salmon, herring, tuna, or trout, those are awesome for essential fatty acids. Eggs and dairy, whole grains, beans and legumes, avocado, nuts and seeds, leafy greens, berries, and potatoes. These 9 foods are going to cover all of those micronutrients that I just listed. So if you need to write those down, rewind a little bit, jot them down, add them to your grocery list, because by incorporating these nutrients and foods into your daily diet, you, sister, are going to support your mental health and overall well-being. Like, how crazy is that? Just adding fatty fish twice a week, you are hitting your recommended omega-3 levels And guess what? You're giving your brain lotion every day, just like you're giving your face lotion at the end of the day. Let's lotion your brain as well. Remember, my friend, taking care of your mental health, it truly is a daily practice, just like anything else that we take care of, just like our physical exercise. When we make mental health a priority, and I'm not talking about like an overwhelming priority here. Think about it. Adding those 9 foods to your grocery list, does that really modify or dramatically impact your week? Probably not. It just might require some extra thinking when you're writing the grocery list. But all in all, this is something that we can just add that adds a little bit here, but really strength trains our brain and gives our brain the tools to become more resilient. Isn't that great? Isn't that cool? I'm so excited about it. I know recently we've added fatty fish to our menu. I've been so into poke bowls lately. If there are 2 people in the world. Either you heard that and said, "Oh, that's awesome, I want the recipe," or you thought to yourself, "Gross. I would sooner swim with sharks than eat raw fish." So if you're on the other side, let me know. I'll send you my favorite poke bowl recipe. Friend, I'm so glad you were here today. I hope you took a lot away. But if you take anything away, we covered a lot of information. If you take anything away from today, what I do hope you take away is that your body, your brain, it is not broken. You actually have some tools at the grocery store that you can pull on to build your mental strength training, and you don't need to hit rock bottom before you can start to implement these things. Like, doing this today is going to set you up to be more resilient, because life, let's be honest, it is not easy. It is hard and it is tiring, and I just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to set ourselves up to fuel our awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I love chatting with you. We'll be back again on Friday talking about salt. Should this be a salty summer? Those electrolyte beverages are everywhere, and I want to dive into some of the research behind that. We will see you, friend, on Friday. Until then, cheers and happy eating. I'm so glad you were here today. Let's do yourself a favor and write down at least one actionable item that you can take away from today's episode to start fueling your awesome. Here on the show, we scratch the surface of empowered eating, but if you're looking to dive in deeper, I would love to help you out with that. Head over to jessbrownrd.com. You can check out my free Empowered Eating workshop. You can take a free quiz to see if your eating style aligns with your values, or better yet, book a discovery call with me to learn more about how to further your empowered eating journey. I cannot wait to be in your ear again, cheering you on along the way. Until then, cheers and happy eating.